Hey everybody!
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Welcome to Two Awesome Men. Today we'll be reviewing Marvel Civil War.
And this will be a spoiler-free review, by the way, just to let y'all know. In this film, after the destruction that happened in the last two Avengers, the Winter Soldier, and even something else that happened at the very beginning of this film, it is decided that the Avengers must start working underneath the United Nations. And they will start telling them what they can and cannot do.
And because of this, the Avengers go on separate sides of the decision, with Tony Stark in favor and Steve Rogers against. And the rest of the Avengers have to choose sides.
So the first point I would like to make about this is the directors of this movie. Their name is the Russo brothers, just in case you didn't know that. But they did really amazing. And the one thing I like about them is they directed the Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, and they did really good at that movie. And I started getting really confident about these next movies because they're going to be doing the next ones like Infinity Wars. And then after seeing this movie, I was like 100%, almost 100% confident because they did really well. So.
And I just want to start off by saying that, apologizing to y'all because my voice is sort of going out, which never happens. But anyways, just want to say that. One of the things that we both agree on is that the humor in all the Marvel movies, well, most of them, is too much. Like, they focus too much on the humor, and it really takes away from most of the films. But on this one, in Civil War, they really found a right balance for humor and seriousness. And I really think they perfected that.
Yeah, and another thing I liked about it was, just bringing up coming off the humor point of it, was they have Spiderman in this movie. And the one thing about Spiderman in the comic books is he always spits out these cheesy one-liners, which is fine because that's his character. But if you would have had him in like the other Marvel movies, it wouldn't have been as special because everybody's doing that. And so they really did that really well with doing this, just Spider-Man having this cheesy one-liner himself.
Yeah, and speaking of Spider-Man, the actor they chose to play Spider-Man, Tom Holland, he is probably one of the most perfect actors they could have chosen to play Peter Parker. Obviously they went to go the younger route. Because he's 15 in this movie, which Tom Holland is 19, but Spider-Man in this movie is supposed to be 15. And I think that's perfect because, excuse me, what's special about this Spider-Man character is that he's this young kid amongst all these adults, mature superheroes, and he's sort of like the little kid of the Avengers.
In this movie, there's a lot of actual fighting. In movies like Avengers Age of Ultron, it was just a whole bunch of shooting mainly. It was aliens, like a bunch of aliens in the first Avengers, and in the second Avengers, there's a whole bunch of like robots, and so there was no way of them like purely just fighting all these like
hand.
Yeah. But this movie had a lot of actual fighting, and I think that was really done really well with it was choreographed really well and just put together really well.
Yeah, and if you watch the Daredevil Netflix series, there's a lot of that kind of fighting, like hand to hand, acrobatic moves, and like even the Black Widow fights. Like in the previous movies, Black Widow's fight scenes have been pretty decent, but in this movie, like they're pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
like,
they're pretty
pretty
awesome.
Incredible. Not ridiculous like bad, but they're pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
And now it's time for the cons. Now these cons didn't take away too much from the movie. We just decided to bring them up since we found them while we were watching the movie. The first one was the CGI. The CGI was by far terrible, not terrible in this movie, but it was just a little bit rough here and there, especially Spider-Man's suit. Like, I like the design of his suit, but it looked way too CGI'd. And Black Panther's fight scenes, there was a couple of scenes where you could tell it was a little computer generated. And Iron Man's suit was every now and then it looked a little too fake. I never really noticed it in the previous Iron Man movies, but in this movie you could tell here and there where it was CGI'd.
Yeah, another con that I want to bring up is Emily Olsen. She was not miscast. I'm not saying she was miscast, but she's a really good actress. but she really needs to work on her accent, because there's a few times where she's talking and like all of a sudden it just feels like she just threw her accent away and she's no longer Russian. She's just like just talking like regular like this. So.
And the start of the movie, it was a little slow. I mean, I can't really call this a con because I didn't really see it as bad, but it did start off a little slow. And I know they had to introduce all these characters and all these storylines, which they did fantastically, but it did start off sort of slow. It sort of drug a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, and another thing is, like again, I said it a while ago. This girl was not miscast, but it's something that and it's Aunt May, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. Now this is something that people know about for a while, but she doesn't look like Aunt May. Well, just say that she's too young to be Aunt May. Yeah, she doesn't look like Aunt May, and so that's kind of a big deal because Aunt May is always kind of like she always kind of looks like a grandma kind of figure. But that's the only point I have now.
And to add on to that, I sort of understand why they went the younger route, because they want the Spider-Man character to last a long period of time, which is why they cast Tom Holland, who's 19 years old, because they want the audience to grow up with this character of Spider-Man throughout many years. So they can't really cast an old woman for this movie to be Aunt May, because as terrible as it sounds, it just wouldn't work. But they didn't really have to go that young. The next con that we want to bring up is that the ending of this movie was a little abrupt. It sort of felt like the writers of this movie sort of felt that, hey, let's go ahead and end this movie, but they didn't really know how to, so they just ended it. Like, it didn't really feel like a complete ending, and I don't know, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It felt a little rushed.
Yeah, that's true. And another con I want to bring up, and it's not a really, this is probably the least con. This is probably the little smallest con. I don't even know how to say this. It's probably the least con out of all of them, but it's just something that you kind of noticed. But you know how in Netflix you have Punisher, you have the Defenders. Let's say the Defenders.
Daredevil,
you know,
Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, the Punisher.
Yeah, you have them, and they're in the same universe. They're in the same universe, so it's all legal. They can mention them. They never made one mention of them throughout the entire movie. Now, like, I'm not gonna say I was like just like waiting for them to like just say their names, but it would have been cool to just have their names thrown in there.
Yeah, and in all honesty, it doesn't really make sense in this movie for them not even to mention them. I wouldn't even care that much if they didn't show them at all, but it didn't make sense at all for this movie not to mention the Defenders at all, because there's superheroes in this universe, and this movie is about superheroes being put in check. So I didn't really understand. I mean, it's not that big of a con, but I just felt like they should have just made a little mention.
Yeah.
Now, for the grading of this movie, I just want to let y'all know that after we saw this movie, we both wrote down on our phone what grade we thought this movie deserved, and we showed each other at the same exact time, and we had the same exact grade for this movie.
Yeah, and so before we give out the grades, I just want to let y'all know this movie was very good. It was almost close to perfect, but there was just those few things here and there that kind of just took away from the quality. And so overall, I would give this movie an A.
Yeah, and to agree with what he said, I just want to say that this was a well put together movie, and so I will also give it an A.
Does that go pretty good?
Mm. Oh, and by the way, guys, just as a side note, we've actually created our own Civil War teams. We've created a fantasy draft of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe characters, and we've taken turns choosing each of the characters. And at the end of this video, we'll display each of our teams, and we want y'all to vote on who y'all think chose the best characters and has the best Civil War team. And we'll have each of them in the description as well.
Yeah, and also if you like this video, you can go into our page and watch some of our other videos. You know, give us some likes, give us some comments, give us some of those subscriptions. That'd be pretty cool too. Mm-hmm. So, you know, also we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter page, we don't have an Instagram page. We might be creating that. Who knows? I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video.
and don't die.
Yeah, that's always a good idea.